I've driven this Nevada route 200 times. That rest stop was never there before last April. The first thing you learn about Nevada is that the distance is not metaphorical. People who have not driven it think they understand it because they have driven other empty places. West Texas, the Dakotas, the long flat run through eastern Oregon where the radio drops out and you have an hour with nothing but your own thinking. Those places are empty in the way that a room is empty. Nevada is empty in the way that a sentence is empty when the language it was written in no longer exists. There is nothing missing from it. It is complete. It simply does not refer to anything you have a name for. I have driven US 50 and US 93 and the unnamed county connectors between them for 11 years. Before that, I drove regionally in California, which does not count, because California is never really empty. There is always the implication of a city somewhere behind the hills, always the cellular hum of proximity, always the sense that the land has been thought about by someone recently. Nevada has not been thought about. Nevada simply is. After 11 years of running it, I do not find this frightening or beautiful or spiritual. I find it accurate. The land is what it is and I am what I am, and we have an arrangement. I drive freight, consolidated loads mostly. I'm not running a full trailer for a single shipper, but aggregating smaller consignments into an efficient configuration, which means my manifest is always a small taxonomy of other people's needs. Electronic components from a distribution hub outside Elko. Agricultural supplies moving south. Occasionally something in temperature-controlled cases that I am not supposed to open and do not open. I run the same corridor 3 times a week, east on Monday, west on Wednesday, east again on Friday. I have done this for 4 years on this specific route, and for 7 before that on a northern variant that used a different section of the same essential nowhere. 200 runs is a conservative figure. I said it because it is defensible. The true number is closer to 240, but I am precise about what I claim. I noticed the rest stop on my 63rd eastbound run, which was the 14th of April of last year. I know the date because I log everything, not because I am required to. The company's electronic logging device captures the data that federal hours of service regulations require, and I am compliant with those regulations. But because I have kept a personal log since my 3rd year of driving, initially as a memory exercise, and later as a habit I no longer question. The log is a standard format notebook, the kind with the black and white marbled cover that used to be called a composition book, and I go through roughly 4 of them a year. Each entry records the date, the direction, the departure time, the arrival time, the weather, anything anomalous about the load or the road or the conditions, and a column I call N that stands for nothing, which is what I write in it on runs when nothing worth noting occurred. On the 14th of April, I wrote in the anomalous column, rest area, mile marker, 191 to 193, approximately, eastbound, no prior observation, check registry. I checked the registry when I reached Ely. The Nevada Department of Transportation maintains a public-facing list of all designated rest areas on state and federal routes, including maintenance schedules, facility details, and historical opening dates. I know this list. I have used this list. I have stopped at every legitimate rest area on this corridor multiple times, and I know their locations, the way I know the positions of the significant grades. Not by consulting a reference, but by physical expectation, by the body's anticipation of a familiar thing. The location between mile markers 191 and 193 does not appear on the list. It did not appear on the list in April. It does not appear on the list now. I have checked it 31 times since the first check, which is not obsessive behavior for a person with my professional habits and my specific situation. It is documentation. There is a difference. I made a second entry in the log that night. Not on NDOT registry. Facility present. Lighted. Appeared operational. Did not stop. I did not stop because I did not need to stop. Because I had stopped 40 minutes earlier at the legitimate rest area at mile marker 147, which is the Austin Summit rest area, and which has been there since 1987, and which appears in the NDOT registry with an entry number and a maintenance history. I was not fatigued, I was not in need of the facilities, and I had no reason to pull in. A driver who stops at every opportunity is a driver who is not managing their run efficiently, and I manage my runs efficiently. This is not pride, this is the job. But I noted it, because it was there, and it should not have been. And noting what should not be is the other half of what the log is for. The rest stop looks right. I want to be specific about this because I think it is the most important thing I can tell you, and I do not want to give you the wrong impression. It does not look strange. It does not look ominous. It does not look like the kind of place where a reasonable person would hesitate. It looks like every rest stop on every federal highway in the American West. A low brown building set back from the road, the universal architecture of poured concrete and shallow-pitched roofing that was standardized sometime in the 1970s and has never needed to be reconsidered because it works, because it is legible, because every driver in America has understood it at a glance for 50 years. There are two entrances from the highway, a pull-in from the eastbound lane and a pull-in from the westbound, separated by a median of rough ground with some drought-tolerant planting that has the exhausted look of drought-tolerant planting everywhere in the state. There are spaces for passenger vehicles and spaces for commercial vehicles separated by a painted island. There are picnic tables of the standard Western rest stop type, heavy treated wood on concrete footings, the kind that have resisted both weather and vandalism for decades, not because they are indestructible, but because there is no one out here to vandalize them. There are the brown and white highway signage panels that begin appearing 3 miles out and then 1 mile out, and then at the approach, the font and the format precisely correct. The international symbols for restroom and picnic area and commercial vehicle parking rendered at the correct size and in the correct FHWA series typeface. At night, and I have only ever seen it at night, the facility lighting is the correct temperature. This is something I did not expect to notice until I noticed it, and then I could not stop noticing it. Rest stop lighting in Nevada is consistently in a specific color register. A slightly warm, slightly yellow-cast fluorescence that is probably an artifact of old fixtures and the particular desert air and the altitude, and which I have never seen matched exactly by anything in a city or a suburb. The light at this rest stop matches it exactly. Not approximately. Exactly. I have driven past it at varying speeds on different nights in different weather, and in all cases it has looked like what it says it is. I do not find this reassuring. Her name was Cressida Vane, and she was not a hitchhiker. I want to be clear about that too. I do not pick up hitchhikers, and I have not done so in 11 years of driving, not because I am hard-hearted, but because the company's insurance policy prohibits it, and because I agreed to the company's insurance policy and agreements mean something to me. Cressida Vane was not a hitchhiker. She was the younger sister of Danny Huang, who was a dispatcher at the Elko hub, and who has worked with me for 3 of my 4 years on this corridor, and whom I consider professionally reliable and personally straightforward, which is higher praise from me than it might sound from someone else. Danny called me the afternoon before the run. "I have a favor to ask," he said. "You can say no." When someone prefaces a request by telling you that you can say no, the content of the request is usually something that would be difficult to say no to. I have learned to be attentive to this framing. I said, "Tell me what it is." He told me. His sister was in Elko for a family matter that he did not specify and that I did not ask about. She needed to get to Winnemucca by the following morning, where there was something else he also did not specify. The bus did not run on that schedule. She had a car, but it was currently... He paused in a way that suggested a story he had decided not to tell. Unavailable. He could drive her himself, but he was short-staffed and could not leave the hub. He had already checked with 2 other drivers who were not running that corridor. I was the only clean option. I said, "She understands the cab is not a car, and this is a working run." He said, "Yes, she's not. She won't be difficult. She's going through something, but she's not a difficult person." I thought about it for the length of time it took me to check my fuel log and confirm my departure time. Then I said, "She needs to be at the hub at 5:45. If she is not there at 5:45, I leave without her." She was there at 5:38, which told me something useful about her. She was in her middle 30s, slightly younger than me, with the look of someone who had been crying recently and had decided to be finished with it. She had a single bag, a proper bag, with a shoulder strap and a clasp, not an overstuffed suitcase or a collection of loose items that would take up space inefficiently. She climbed into the cab with the competence of someone who had been in a cab before, settled herself and said, "Thank you for this. I know it's not what you usually do." I told her it was fine and went through the departure checks. We were rolling by 5:49. The sky east of Elko at that hour in early October is a particular shade. Not dark, not light, but a kind of held grey that is not yet committed to anything. And the road was empty and clean, and I fell into the run the way you fall into something you have done enough times that the body manages it without asking the mind for much. She did not talk for the first hour, which I appreciated. She looked out the window. There was not much to look at, but she looked at it with what seemed like genuine attention rather than the performative staring into distance of someone who wants to appear to be leaving you alone. She had a thermos of coffee that she offered to share once and did not offer again when I declined, which was correct behavior. Around the hour mark, she asked me how long I'd been running this road. 4 years on this corridor, I said. 11 total. Do you like it? I considered the question. I'm suited to it, I said. That's better than liking it. She looked at me for a moment and then nodded as though I'd said something she was storing away. I know exactly what you mean, she said. I'm a surveyor. Land surveying. People ask me if I like it. And you're suited to it. I'm very suited to it. A pause. Though I'm starting to think I've been using it as a way of not doing other things. I did not respond to this, not because it was not interesting, but because I recognized it as the opening of a conversation about something personal that she did not actually need me to engage with. She needed to say it, which is different. People in transit say things they need to say. The motion permits it. I have been said things to for 11 years, and I have learned to hold them without taking them up, the way you carry something in an open hand. She seemed to understand this too, because she turned back to the window, and we drove. We were somewhere between Austin and the eastern approach to the basin when she asked if we could stop. I looked at the time and the position on the road. We had passed the Austin Summit rest area 40 minutes earlier and I had not stopped, partly because I did not need to, and partly, if I am honest in this accounting, and I am trying to be, because I was watching the distance to the anomaly and making unconscious preparations. The next legitimate rest area was 40 miles further east. Between here and there, at mile markers 191 to 193, was the rest stop that was not on any registry. I need the restroom, she said. I'm sorry. I should have gone in Austin, but I didn't think I needed to. There's a stop coming up, I said. How far? I said the number, and she did not respond immediately, and I already knew from the quality of that silence what she was going to say. Can we stir anything sooner? I'm sorry. I drank too much of the coffee. There was the stop. There was the one that should not exist. It was 11 miles ahead. I drove for a while without answering, which she correctly interpreted as me thinking rather than refusing, because she waited. Here is what I was thinking. I was thinking about the log. I had at this point 14 entries for the anomalous rest stop across 8 months of runs, not counting the initial sighting in April. All 14 entries recorded the same information. Presence confirmed, lights operational, apparent occupancy, no stop made. Some entries noted vehicles in the lot. The count varied, anywhere from 2 to 7, mostly passenger vehicles, occasionally a commercial truck I did not recognize from the Elko or Winnemucca rosters. One entry from a July run noted a family at a picnic table. One entry from a September run noted a figure in a maintenance uniform emptying the trash receptacles near the entrance. None of my entries recorded a stop. None of them recorded what had happened to anyone who did stop. I had no entries in the column for that because I had no data. I had not stopped. I had not spoken to anyone who had stopped. I had not found a single account anywhere. Not in any trucking forum, not in any Nevada travel resource, not in any of the places where drivers discuss anomalies in the road. Of this specific stop, this specific location, this specific wrongness between markers 191 and 193. Not a single account, which told me either that no one else had noticed, or that everyone who noticed had done what I did and kept driving, or that the people who had stopped had not subsequently been in a position to write about it. I did not know which of those was true. I could not know. What I knew was that Cressida Vane was a land surveyor who was going through something, and who needed to use a restroom in the next 11 miles, and who had been courteous and sensible, and who had done nothing to deserve being made a variable in my private taxonomy of a thing I did not understand. I also knew that I had driven past this stop 31 times, and nothing had happened to me. Nothing had changed in the road. Nothing had reached out from the lit building as I passed. Nothing had come back with me to Elko or Winnemucca. I drove past it and it was there, and then I drove on and the road was the road. But I had not stopped. "There's a stop," I said carefully. "About 11 miles. She said, "Thank you. I need to tell you something about it." She turned from the window. I could see her in the edge of my peripheral vision, attentive, reading whatever was in my voice. "It's a rest stop," I said. "It will look like a rest stop. It has everything a rest stop has. But it is not on the NDOT registry. It was not there before last April. I have driven this corridor, this direction, 63 times before April, and it was not there. Now it is there every time." Silence. "I don't stop there," I said. "I've never stopped there. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to tell you it's dangerous because I don't know that. I'm not going to tell you it's fine because I don't know that either. I'm telling you what I know, which is that it exists and it should not. And I can tell you that we can keep driving and get to the next legitimate facility in 40 miles, and if you need to stop before that, I will find a pull-off, and I will stand between the cab and the road, and you will have what privacy this landscape provides." She was quiet for long enough that the mile markers changed twice. Then she said, "How many times have you driven past it?" 31 times after noticing it, 63 times before without noticing, but I can't count those. "And nothing has happened when you drive past?" "Not to me, not that I've observed." "But you don't know about the people who stopped?" "No." Another silence, shorter. "Okay," she said. I need you to think about this with me for a minute. Not just tell me the facts. What is your instinct? Not what you can document. What does your body tell you when you drive past it?" I thought about this seriously because she was asking seriously, and because it was a fair question, probably the most useful question she could have asked. "Wrong," I said. "The way a weight is wrong when the manifest says it should be 400 kilos, and you can tell from the first time the axle loads that it is not 400 kilos. Not violently wrong, precisely wrong. Like something is off by a specific amount in a specific direction, and whatever is off has been off consistently since April and has not changed." She absorbed this. "But the wrongness hasn't moved toward you." "No. It stays there. It doesn't follow. Not that I've detected." She put her hands flat on her thighs in a gesture that I recognized, even from the edge of peripheral vision, as someone arriving at a decision. "I'm going to go in," she said. "I'm not asking you to come with me. You can wait in the cab. I'm going to go in and use the restroom and come back. I'm a surveyor. I spend my professional life at locations that don't appear on any document yet. Unmarked land is most of my working life. Something being absent from a registry is not the same as something being wrong. I know that. But you still think it's wrong?" "Yes." "Okay," she said. "You think it's wrong, and I'm going to go in anyway. That's where we are. Is there anything I should do or not do?" I thought about that too. I had no instructions. I had never gone in. I had no intelligence. "Don't linger," I said. "Do what you need to do and come back to the cab. Don't talk to anyone if you can avoid it. Don't accept anything." "Don't accept anything," she repeated. "If someone offers you something, water, directions, anything, decline it." She nodded. "How long before we reach it?" I checked. 6 minutes. She put the thermos back in her bag and clipped the clasp closed. The signage appeared on schedule, 3 miles out, then 1 mile, then the approach. The boards were brown and white, the symbols correct, the font unmistakably FHWA Series D. I had seen them 31 times and they had not changed. I decelerated and turned on the indicator and pulled into the eastbound lot with the same motions I use at every rest stop on this road, and the lot was exactly as I had seen it from the road, and the building sat where it always sat, low and concrete and purposeful, and the lights were the exact temperature of every legitimate rest stop in this state. That specific desert night warm that I had not found anywhere except in real facilities on real Nevada highways, and here, in this one, that was not. There were 3 vehicles in the passenger lot, 2 sedans and a pickup truck. None of them were running. None of them had occupants that I could see, though the lighting did not reach the interiors clearly. One sedan had a child's car seat visible in the rear window, the hard plastic kind with a cup holder molded into the arm. In the commercial section, there was a single box truck I did not recognize, the cab dark, the unit number on the door, not a format used by any company running this corridor that I was aware of. There was no one at the picnic tables. There was no maintenance worker. The facility was operational and occupied and still. Cressida unclipped her seatbelt. She had her bag with her, the strap over her shoulder, the clasp closed. "Engine running," I said. "I know. I'm here." She paused with her hand on the door. "What's your name?" I told her. It felt odd to be telling her, nearly 2.5 hours into the run, but it had not come up, and neither of us had needed it. "Okay," she said. "I'll be quick, Marcus." She dropped down from the cab and walked across the lot with the same even, ground-reading stride she'd climbed in with, and I watched her go through the glass door of the women's facility, which swung on its hinge and closed behind her. I sat with the engine running. The lot was quiet. The lights held their temperature. Nothing moved in the passenger vehicles. The box truck sat dark. I had my phone and I checked the NDOT registry. The page loaded as it always does. I have good signal on most of this corridor, which surprises people who think of Nevada as a communications dead zone. But the infrastructure has been built up along the highway routes, because the highway routes are the only reason anyone is here. The list rendered correctly. The rest area at mile marker 147, Austin Summit, was there, with its entry number and its 1987 opening date. The next eastbound facility was the one at mile marker 234. There was nothing listed between them. I put the phone down on the dash. 7 minutes. That's how long I had given her in my head. Not because I had a rational basis for 7 minutes, but because it is approximately the time a rest stop takes when you do not linger. I had said don't linger. I had meant it as a specific instruction about behavior, not as a general counsel of urgency. But sitting in the lot, I was aware that I had perhaps communicated more alarm than I intended, and that she might be moving through the facility in a controlled hurry that was informed by my alarm rather than by her own assessment of the situation, and that this was a problem because her own assessment of the situation was more current than mine and more proximate, and I needed her to use it, not override it with my second-hand unease. 8 minutes. I watched the door. I had not turned off the running lights. I was the only moving vehicle in the lot. The idling of the engine was the loudest sound, and underneath it, barely audible, the particular silence of Nevada that is not an absence of sound but a specific presence. The resonance of open ground at altitude, the way the cold carries the half sounds of the desert, something just below hearing that you cannot describe to someone who has not driven here. The door opened. She came through it with her bag still correctly over her shoulder and the clasp still closed, and the same even stride, and she came back across the lot without looking at anything but the cab, and she climbed back in and pulled the door shut. I did not ask her anything. I pulled out of the lot and back onto the highway and brought the truck up to running speed and let the rest stop fall behind us. She sat with her hands in her lap for about 2 miles. Then she said, "It was fine." I waited. "It was clean," she said. "The lighting was fine, normal. There was a woman washing her hands at the other sink. She didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. I did what I needed to do and I came out." She paused. I washed my hands. I said, "Did anything seem wrong to you? Your own assessment, not mine." She took her time with it. Outside, the road ran straight into a darkness that the headlights addressed without resolving. "It was quiet," she said. "Very quiet. I'd expected it to feel, I don't know, Strange because you told me it was strange, but it didn't feel strange. It felt very ordinary, like a rest stop that has been there a long time and has been maintained. There was a smell of the cleaning fluid they use, that industrial lemon smell. The paper towel dispenser needed refilling. She paused again. The woman at the sink. She was washing her hands when I went in. She was still washing her hands when I came out. Silence. How long were you in there? Maybe 4 minutes, maybe 5. She was at the sink the whole time. Yes. Neither of us said anything for a while. The mile markers went past. 196, 197, 198. Her hands were clean, Cressida said. They'd been clean when I went in, but she kept washing. I want to describe what I know and do not know as clearly as I can, because I am a person who holds a commercial driver's license, which requires not only practical competence, but a medical examination and a background check and a drug testing regime and a genuine relationship with the language of liability. And when I tell a story about something I cannot document, I am aware at every point of what a story like that costs a person like me in terms of professional credibility. And I tell it anyway because not telling it costs more. What I know is this. I have driven this corridor 241 times. I have noted the presence of a rest stop between mile markers 191 and 193 on 32 of those runs, all of them occurring on or after April 14th of the previous year. I have checked the NDOT rest area registry 32 times, and the facility does not appear in it. The facility matches all physical and visual standards for a legitimate Nevada DOT rest area. I have not been able to identify a contractor, a construction record, a permit, a budget line, or a public announcement associated with this facility. I spent 4 hours on a Tuesday in late June at the White Pine County Recorder's Office asking about infrastructure development in the relevant area and was told that no development of that type had been recorded. What I do not know is considerably larger. I do not know what the facility is. I do not know what happens there, or whether anything happens there in a meaningful sense. I do not know who the woman at the sink was, or whether she was there when Cressida Vane went in by coincidence, or by some other mechanism I do not have a vocabulary for. I do not know whether the vehicles in the lot are always the same vehicles, though I have noted their plates when I could, and the plates, when I have run them through the format check, are consistent with Nevada registration. I do not know what is in the building beyond what Cressida described. I have never been inside. I do not intend to go inside. This is not bravery or cowardice. It is the simple arithmetic of a person who has decided that there is an asymmetry between what going in can tell him and what going in might cost him, and that the asymmetry does not favor going in. What I believe, and I use that word with the precision it deserves, to mean the thing I hold as most probable in the absence of contradicting evidence, is that the facility is not a building. I mean this in the specific sense that the concept of a building, as a structure constructed by identifiable agents for identifiable purposes at an identifiable time, does not appear to apply to whatever is between mile markers 191 and 193. I do not know what it is instead. I know that when I drive past it, I am registering a consistent wrongness that does not match any wrongness in my experience of freight, of machinery, of roads, of weather, of the many things that go wrong on long hauls in empty landscapes that have specific, diagnosable causes. This wrongness has no cause I can diagnose. It is consistent, and it does not escalate, and it does not follow me. Cressida went in and came back, and she is in Winnemucca as of the last communication Danny relayed to me, which was a text she sent him the morning after the run saying she'd arrived safely. I do not know anything about what she is going through, what the family matter in Elko was, what brought her to Winnemucca. I do not know if she thought about the woman at the sink again after I dropped her at the bus depot. I did not ask. She did not offer. When I pulled up to the depot, she said thank you and meant it in a way that was direct and not ceremonial. And she climbed down with her bag and went through the depot doors without looking back, which is exactly what you do when you are someone who is going through something and you have places to be and you do not have the energy for lingering. I watched her go in. Then I finished the run to Winnemucca Freight Hub, offloaded the consolidated cargo, completed my log, and drove to the motel where I stay on eastbound runs and slept for 6 hours. In the morning I made the entry in the log. I have a format for the anomalous column. Date, direction, conditions, occupancy observed, action taken, outcome. I have 31 previous entries for this stop, 32 now, and they share a structure. Presence confirmed, no stop, N in the outcome column, which means nothing to report. This entry was different, and I had been aware since somewhere around mile marker 210 that it was going to be different, and I had been composing it in the part of my mind that composes log entries while the rest of my mind was running the final miles of the route and talking to myself in the quiet way I talk to myself on long runs, which is less like thinking and more like sorting, taking the objects of the day and finding the right shelf for each one. I wrote, rest stop present, lights operational, pulled in, eastbound lot, passenger, CV, transit to WMC, entered facility approximately 0214, inside approximately 4 to 5 minutes, reports facility normal, clean, correct. One other occupant noted by passenger. Female, adult, at sink, washing hands at time of entry and time of exit, duration of approximately 4 to 5 minutes. Passenger returned to vehicle without incident. Departed lot approximately 2:22. No anomaly observed from vehicle during stop. Passenger showed no distress on return. Then I sat with the pen over the outcome column. In 31 previous entries I had written N in the outcome column, meaning nothing to report. That had been accurate. Nothing had happened. Nothing had changed. I had driven past and the stop had been there, and I had driven on. This was not that. I did not know what it was. I knew what it was not. I wrote in the outcome column, stop made, returned. That is all. Returned. It is the most I could say accurately. She went in, and she came back. Whatever is in there. Whatever the woman at the sink was doing, whatever the stillness of those 3 cars means, whatever the box truck with the unregistered unit number is, and wherever it came from, Cressida Vane went in, and she came back, and she got to Winnemucca, and that is the shape of the event. I am not going to embroider it. I am not going to build a theory around the woman at the sink beyond what the observation earns. I have a data point now that I did not have before. One person went in and came out unchanged, or changed only in the way that anyone is changed by a thing they cannot fully explain, which is not much, and which may be indistinguishable from the baseline of simply being a person who moves through the world and encounters things. I run this corridor 3 times a week. I will pass this stop on Friday. Here is what I think about when I drive, which is most of my waking life. I think about loads. I think about axle weights and center of gravity, and the way a shift in the consolidated cargo can alter the handling on a grade so subtly that a less attentive driver would not notice until the road demanded a response. I think about fuel consumption curves and the relationship between speed and load and wind resistance on the basin sections where the wind comes from directions that are not marked on any compass rose I was ever taught. I think about road surfaces and how the same surface feels different under different loads in different temperatures. I think about the infrastructure of this country, which is the largest thing most people never think about, the physical fact of 2 million miles of paved road connecting 330 million people and the 10,000 invisible decisions per mile that make it safe to drive at speed in the dark without knowing anything about the ground you are crossing. I find the infrastructure beautiful in the specific way that precise things are beautiful. Not emotionally, not aesthetically, but in the way that something that works exactly as it is supposed to work is a satisfaction to witness. A well-engineered grade, a correctly banked curve, a rest stop at the right interval with the right facilities maintained to the right standard. These things represent accumulated human judgment across decades of practice, and they are present in the landscape without announcement, taken entirely for granted by everyone who uses them, which seems to me like the best possible condition for a useful thing. This is why the stop bothers me. Not because it is frightening, though it may be. Not because something terrible may be happening there, though it may be. It bothers me because it is using the language of the useful. It is wearing the vocabulary of accumulated human judgment. The correct signage, the correct lighting, the correct architecture. And it is not what that vocabulary means. It is a sentence written in a language I trust, and the sentence does not pass. I do not know who built it, or what it is, or what it wants, if want is even a concept that applies to it, which it may not be. I do not know if it is patient, or indifferent, or something else that I do not have a third word for. I know that it has been there since April, and it has not changed, and it has not moved, and it has not come after anything. I know that Cressida Vane went in and came back, and the woman at the sink was washing hands that were already clean. I know that I will drive past it on Friday. The thing about 241 runs is that the run itself is the thing I know best in my life. Not my apartment in Elko, which I am in for 3 nights a week and which I have furnished adequately, but not with any particular attachment. Not my family, who are in Reno, and with whom I have the relationship of people who love each other at a distance that has calcified over years into a comfortable formal arrangement. Not any other person, because the nature of this work does not produce the conditions in which other persons take root. The run is what I know. The road is what I know. The corridor, the grade, the basin, the grade again, the distance, the dark. And in the dark, between markers 191 and 193, something that looks like rest. I do not stop there. I think about stopping sometimes, not out of curiosity, or not only out of curiosity, if I'm honest in this accounting, and I am trying to be, but out of the professional's itch for complete information. I have a log entry that says returned, and I have no entry that says what returning meant, what she came back from, what the woman at the sink was oriented toward. Incomplete information is a condition I can work under. I have worked under it for 8 months, but it is not a condition I am comfortable with, and there is a difference, and I know the difference. I will not stop on Friday. I will not stop the Friday after. I may never stop. I am recording this now because the log is not sufficient, and I am aware that the log is not sufficient. It is a record for me in my format, and what I am describing does not belong only to me anymore. It belongs partly to Cressida Vane, who chose to go in, whose choice I permitted, whose choice I think about with an attention that is neither guilt nor vindication but something with the texture of both. It belongs to whoever was driving the 2 sedans and the pickup truck and the box truck, and to whatever they found when they went inside, or whatever they became. It belongs to the woman at the sink. It belongs to the landscape that contains it, which is the landscape I run through 3 times a week in the dark, and which has never promised me anything except distance. I am recording this so that someone else has it, not so they can act on it. I do not know what action would look like, not so they can investigate. I have investigated in the sense that investigation was available to me, and I have told you what I found. I am recording this because I am precise about what I claim, and what I claim is this. There is a rest stop between mile markers 191 and 193 on the eastbound US 50 corridor in central Nevada. It has been there since April 14th of last year. It is not on the NDOT registry. It looks right. A woman I was transporting went inside and came out, and the woman at the sink was washing already clean hands for the duration of her stay. The vehicles in the lot are present, but still. The facility is lit and operational and consistent. It does not move, it does not follow, it does not change. I do not know what it is. I run this corridor 3 times a week. On Friday, I will pass it at approximately 02:10 hours eastbound, and the signage will appear at 3 miles, and then at 1 mile, and then at the approach, and I will hold my speed, and the lights will be the right temperature, and I will go on. The road is long, and I am suited to it. Entry. Personal log. Run 242, eastbound. Conditions. Clear. 34 degrees Fahrenheit. No wind. Load. Consolidated. 6 consignments. Manifest attached. Anomalous. Rest stop. Mile markers. 191 to 193. Present. Lights operational. Lot occupancy. 4 vehicles. 3 passenger. 1 commercial. Woman at picnic table facing east. Did not stop. Outcome. N.